All right, now, yesterday, here you go. There'll be 15% less if Labor gets re-elected at this coming election. Those cherries for your Christmases and future Christmases, as a result of the Prime Minister's announcement yesterday, removing the 15% GST component to fresh fruit and frozen vegetables. Fresh fruit and frozen vegetables and fruit. Won't apply to cans, won't apply to anything that's processed. It's a bit of a boondoggle, as the Minister of Finance says. But it is aimed at trying to alleviate, according to the Prime Minister yesterday in his announcement, trying to alleviate the cost of living and the pressure of trying to feed a family when you are in straitened circumstances. The other component of that announcement yesterday, which I don't think has been properly covered, are the changes to the Working for Families, which will give an extra $20, $20 to $25. Well, it depends. It sort of abates. But if you earn under, I think it is $95,000 and you have a couple of kids and things like that, that's $95 household income gross. All right. Now, talking us through that from people who deal with let's be honest with you, the most straitened, the most vulnerable, the most poor in the community. Joining us from the Wellington City Mission. Wellington City Mission is Murray Edridge, and he's going to talk us through his reaction to yesterday now. Murray, welcome to the show, and great to have you on board.
Good morning, Michael. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Murray, just tell me a little bit about yourself and the Wellington City Mission. What is the Wellington City Mission?
Well, the Wellington City Mission has existed in Wellington and the Wellington region for 119 years. And
wow.
Our purpose is to help those who struggle in our community, and for a whole lot of reasons, but to give them a sense of hope and possibility, and to just help them with some of the day-to-day stuff that they deal with. And, we've been doing that for such a long time. And, it's interesting because you look back at the history of this organisation and some of the stuff they were grappling with in the early 1900s haven't changed. And there's a cruel irony in that, we label it differently now. It's got a wee bit of a different flavour, but actually the issues are real, and they remain real, and they remain unresolved for the people who are doing life really tough.
And where you're based in Wellington, is that just your bailiwick and Porora and Hutt Valley or something else, or it is the whole region?
Yeah, the Wellington region. So we go out to the base of the Mimitakas, and we go up as far as roughly the Otaki River, something like that. So the bottom chunk of the North Island. Now,
you always used to be, and I don't know if you still are, a religious-based organisation in the sense that a lot of church people ended up working there as a practical exponent of Christianity.
Yeah.
Is that still the case today?
We're faith-led, faith-centred, which doesn't require anything of people who work here apart from understanding that's what it is. Very much the reason we do what we do comes from a place of faith. And, I'm the 12th Wellington City Missioner. I was the first one not to be an ordained Anglican priest, although that's changed this year because I recently got ordained, which wasn't part of the intended part of the journey, but it happened, yeah. And look, we're not here to evangelise or convert anybody or do anything like that. We're here solely to serve the community who needs support.
Well, I'm an Anglican myself, Murray, so Anglicans aren't very good at evangelising. I mean, we leave that to the sort of, I don't know why, but we're also a funny sort of church, aren't we? We've got everybody from sort of devil worshippers right through to the holy rollers. It's an odd church.
Well, yeah, see, I identify primarily as a Baptist. So
there you go, see?
Church, and, but I've become an Anglican priest, so yeah, life's full of surprises, eh?
It is indeed. All right, mate, now, yesterday's announcement was meant to help the people that you deal with on a daily basis, will it?
Yes, it will. And those people don't eat cherries, I'm afraid, much as they might like to. But yes, it will. And I've been clear on this. Is this a perfect solution? Is this something that doesn't have any fish hooks or challenges in it? No, not at all. But those things don't exist in my experience. Will it help people who are really, really struggling? Yes, it will, because the people who we're talking about in that context don't have access to fresh fruit and veggies. They might access frozen vegetables because that's the only way they can get them. But to reduce the cost of those is a very real contribution to well-being.
Okay. Are you confident that the 15% reduction from the 1st of April next year will be passed on and that the supermarkets will actually do their job?
Well, that's something we need to put a big deal of focus on. I know the government are committed to that, or certainly the Labour Party in this context are committed to that through the Grocery Commissioner or whoever. We work really closely with the supermarkets. I have every expectation that they will do the right thing, but we should hold them to account for that. Because the reality is that people just don't buy this stuff now because they cannot afford it.
So you're saying to me that the average person going into, or let's just say the Pororua Pack and Save, okay? There's a good example. I go to the Pororua Pack and Save. I'm poor, so I could be a beneficiary, but I could also be somebody who is single, who's raising kids, who's on the minimum wage as well, or a family of such. A lot of Pacific Islanders live in that area as well. Met a whole lot of them yesterday at the Scots, ironically, Silverstream Rugby First 15 final. Those sorts of people, do they currently purchase fresh fruit and vegetables for their children? No, I don't believe they do. And certainly the people we're seeing day in, day out don't. One of the things we do at the City Mission here is we set up New Zealand's first social supermarket, which is how we distribute food now. We don't have a food bank, we have a supermarket. And we ensure that the products we have in that supermarket are the best they can be. So, we've got the best produce New Zealand can produce. And we have fresh fruit and veggies in there. But the people who come in there and are the beneficiary of that initiative often say, we haven't had fresh fruit and veggies for as long as they can remember, because there's just not the ability to pay for it. So if they're not eating fresh fruit and vegetables, Murray, what are they eating? They're eating stuff that you and I wouldn't consider was sufficiently nutritious to keep us well. They're eating frozen veggies because they are nutritious. Affordable. Yep. But that's about the extent of it. Not a lot of green stuff. A lot of processed food, just because it's cheaper, and it's about bulk. A lot of carbohydrates. Really, it's about how do you make your money go as far as it can. Because one of the challenges here, Michael, is that I'm applauding the Labour Party for doing this, because this is a good thing to do. And any political party that goes into this election without paying attention to the cost of living issues isn't listening to the community. But the big issue here is actually the cost of housing. And the cost of housing means that the household budget is so stressed and so pressured that people don't have enough money for anything, let alone food. And that's what we're seeing. The people that come into our supermarket don't primarily have a food problem. They have a household budget problem and an income affordability problem. And so we've got to get real about things that take the vast majority of that budget, and absolutely that's about the cost of rental accommodation. Okay, but that isn't being addressed at the moment. I hope someone's going to address it before October. Well, who's going to do that? Yes, but no, you're quite right. And the second part of that is that I've read the commentators over the last 48, 72 hours on this, ever since Nicola Willis actually licked it 2-3 weeks ago. And they say that the average difference will mean $4 or $5 a week. Now, I understand that $5 can be a lot of money, but I guess if I was, I have been a single person raising 3 children by myself in straitened circumstances. That's not going to make a hell of a lot of difference to me if that's the only value of the taking GST off fruit and veggies, is it? Well, look, I think there's two things, Michael. One is that there depends on the spin you put on the numbers. Some people are saying it's more than that, and neither you or I are probably going to be able to work that out this morning. No, it depends on each individual budget, I imagine. Well, that's right, yes, indeed. But I think the critical thing for fruit and veggies is it might provide accessibility to those where it doesn't exist at the moment. So that's a good thing.
I mean, I've heard some of the commentary as well, and some of the commentary is, look, the biggest consumers of fresh fruit and veggies are the wealthy, so that this is not a good initiative. And it's like, well, that's a side effect, The reality is, if this gives anybody access to some food types that are really important for them and their families that they don't get at the moment, then that's got to be something that we have some support for.
We're going through what's known as a cost of living crisis now, as you well know, Murray. I imagine you're extraordinarily busy. That's the report of most welfare agencies throughout New Zealand that are dealing in your area. This doesn't come until the 1st of April next year. That's an awful long time away for people who are in supposedly crisis now.
Yep, that's exactly right. And now you could argue it's too little, too late. But the reality is, I'm aware that these things take some time to put in place. There's clearly some mechanisms that need to be established and some protocols around that. And this is all connected, as we all know, with electability in October and all of those things as well. So is it enough, and is it early enough? No, of course it's not. But the government did a cost of living payment last year and got severely criticised for the bluntness of the payment mechanism. My response at that point was, yeah, look, I accept that some people have got it who shouldn't have got it, and it's a pretty blunt instrument. But at least it got money out at the time to people who really, really needed it. And that's my criteria of, was this a good thing to do or not?
Understand, but it's 7.5 months from now until when that policy could take effect. That's in a time, as you say, we're living in a crisis. That seems cynical to me, in the sense of, if you vote for me, I will give you this on the 1st of April, when they have enough power, surely, if they believe that there was a problem, to make that happen tomorrow.
Yeah, and look, it could have been announced in this year's budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming a bit earlier.
Yeah.
But, we all know we live within political parameters and other things, and politicians do all sorts of things for all sorts of reasons. My purpose is to actively encourage everyone to put their best foot forward in terms of what's going to help people most. And we're not talking about people like you and I, because we'll get by. I'm talking about people who for whom life is an incredible struggle just to survive day to day.
No, I accept that.
I mean, someone talked the other day about a midlife crisis, and a psychologist said, what a privilege to have a midlife crisis, because actually we've got the time to think about the things that are going on in the middle of our lives, when most people are living in a crisis-type mechanism every single day, saying, am I going to survive the rest of this day? Am I going to have the food for the kids on the table? Am I going to pay the power bill? Am I going to get evicted? This stuff is real, and it's completely controlling people's lives. And I don't think those of us who aren't in that situation can really fully understand the pressure that creates on people.
I accept that, but there's a part of me, and the criticism, Murray, you would have dealt with it a myriad of times, probably around the dinner table with your guests, and that is, at what point can these people get out of their quandary, financial, emotional, intellectual? At what point can they actually plot a way to get out of dependency on an income or a welfare benefit or something like that would allow them to have a much greater control over their budget and their lives?
Look, absolutely understand that. The vast majority of people that we work with, I believe, aren't responsible for their own circumstance. That's other people have done that, or there's some intergenerational stuff that's happened. Clearly, longer term, things like education are critical, and we've got to have some bigger conversations as a community about that. But what we're seeing just at the moment, and I met with Grant at the beginning of this year, because I try and do that and say to him, hey, this is the reality on the ground. I know you get lots of advice from other people, but here's how it is on the ground. And what my teams were telling me is that we've got a degree of hopelessness in our community at the moment. It's more difficult than most people have even seen before. And it's just because, part of our job with our social work teams and our teams that work with families is enabling them to exactly do that, to navigate their way to a different outcome. But when you can't see yourself out of your current circumstance, it gets really, really difficult. And if we've got people who are losing hope in our community, that's a disaster, that manifests itself in all sorts of ways.
It does. And I guess, though, the really interesting thing is that no two people deal with the same way. As I said to you in introduction, I went yesterday to watch the first 15 rugby final at Jerry Collins Park in Pororua between Scots College and St Pat's Silverstream. And one of the things you immediately note in Scots College, which is still a private school, are the large number of Polynesians who are playing in that game. Gosh, there must have been about 10 or 11 of the 15 that took the field originally, and the Polynesian families that are supporting them. Now, my father used to be the principal of Scots College, which is, as you know, is a faith-based school, late 80s, early 90s. And one of the things he said to me was, when I said to him, gosh, you've got more Polynesians in your rugby team even there than I thought. Are they all sporting scholarships? He said, no. These are people who work all hours of the day and night so that they can pay the fees to send their son to Scots College. And they come, and they're all on minimum wages, and they are living in straitened circumstances, but they are determined to find that pathway for someone in their family to get out of where they are. Now, I guess they make that decision and choice, and obviously that is to an exponential degree. Is that still an option, though, for the people that you're dealing with, or is that emotionally a step they won't be able to take?
Oh, look, for some it clearly is, but they're starting from a long way back. You know, this isn't an even starting line, and you know, there's a postcode lottery of the household you're born into, and that makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. And for those of us who have had the benefit of you know, extraordinary upbringings and parenting and all that sort of thing, and you know, and relative privilege, it's quite hard to understand. But actually, you know, some people will make it because they're wired in such a way that they've determined that they're going to make it. You know, and you know, all credit to those who work every hour of the day and night. I'm not sure it's healthy, but it's a great aspiration. So your kids get the best start in life, and hopefully those changes are generational, and that people can, you know, start to redefine how their families are, which is awesome. Absolutely to be commended. But it's not our job then to criticise those who can't make that step because we don't fully understand their circumstances, and that's where the challenge comes, I think.
The other thing
I'm mindful that every day I leave this place and I drive home, and I get home to a warm house, and my lovely wife cooks me a meal, and I walk away from this each day, but I'm really conscious that the people we serve here don't. And this is their reality, and it's day in, night in, day in, you know, night out, and they just never get away from it, and it's quite hard to, I think, change your circumstances when it's it's just so difficult to deal with, and it's the challenge of today, let alone the challenges that tomorrow and the subsequent days are going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, you're not talking to somebody who doesn't have an understanding of the complexity of the issues you're dealing with. I mean, I look at the 350,000 people who are currently drawing a welfare benefit in this country, and although it's an easy target for some ways, many of those people have got no future. I'm thinking of stroke victims, I'm thinking of people who've got serious and significant disabilities, lasting illnesses and things like that, whether they're mental or physical, and they'll never, ever be able to have an independent or an individual lifestyle.
Yes,
But I guess there's also now, the other thing, can I just say, I've just come to Wellington. I've came here a lot when I was Mayor of Whanganui, but that was 10 years ago.
Yes.
I'm now walking over people on Lambton Quay and Willis Street who are clearly mentally ill and at the edges, have gone beyond the edges of society. And I watch civil servants, well-dressed, probably earning $150,000, $200,000 a year, working for the Ministry of Social Development, whatever, step over those people as they go on the way to work. What's wrong with Wellington?
Yeah, and it's not just Wellington, but it is Wellington, and it's Wellington that we didn't used to know, but we now see. And it's about the challenges people are facing and the inadequacy of the systems to respond to it. And my encouragement always to people when they ask, what should I do? I said, make eye contact with people, first of all, engage with them, connect with them. And that may or may not yield any
I don't know.
benefit,
Some of these people, I think that, you know, they are clearly clinically addled, possibly psychotic. But they're walking the streets at the moment, and I understand.
And at that point, the system needs to deal with them, eh? And so what we've had to do in the mission is we've established some of our own clinical expertise because we can't access mental health services in a timely way. And it's no good to say to somebody, look, just hang in there because in 6 months' time someone will get to see you. And you have to go into their office to see them. We want people on site tomorrow and having the conversations we need to have and giving people every chance they can have to succeed. Finally, so we've developed our own service response to that because that's a necessity in terms of the available resources as at the moment.
Listen, I'm never going to discredit or disparage what you do, Murray, or others who are working with people that most of us do not want to deal with. So I will not. One thing, though, I'm interested and intrigued in is how does it stop? And at the moment, the argument seems to be, well, if I give you more money, the problem will go away. But it won't, will it?
No, that's not the solution. It may be part of the solution. One of the things that I say to people is back in the days pre-COVID that we used to travel, my wife and I travelled reasonably extensively and we spent time in places like South America where, Brazil in particular, where you've got people who are very well resourced, but they live in fear of their community because there's so many people who aren't. And when you get a divide in your community between those who have and those who are desperate, it ends up destroying the society you're trying to achieve. So my advice to people is if we want to be successful as a community, we all need to some degree, at least, to share in that success and whatever that looks like. So we've got to find a way to, and I'm not preaching any sort of socialism or sharing all the resources evenly, but I'm saying we just need to find a way that everybody gets the support they need. And that might be seen as an idealistic position. But until we do that, I think we're going to be constantly worried that our community is breaking down and we've got people who don't get the support they need, and therefore our community as a whole suffers, I think.
Murray, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for giving a different viewpoint to many of the economic commentators and I think columnists this morning. You're dealing at that age or with those people. It's an intractable issue. I hope to have you on the show later on to talk more about your views on issues, but thank you for joining us this morning.
Very keen at any time, Michael, to have a conversation.
Good on you, mate.
All the best.
Thank you, Murray. Okay, see you later.
Bye.
All right, it's the Reverend Murray Edridge. He must be. He's a reverend. Yes, there you go. From the Wellington City Mission. His views. Listen, I asked the views, what's he dealing with? I don't think any of us would like his job, would we? And we might have some very clear views on welfare dependence in this country. I'm sure we all do. But for 30 years now, 35 years, ever since I've been in public life myself, I've never seen any government seek to attack it. And whenever, you know why? I'll tell you why. Because it's cheaper to pay those people the dole and to isolate them in the Waitangiruas of this world, for example, than it is to do anything about actually bringing them into society, making them, giving them a job, getting them educated, making sure that their family situations change and becoming productive members of the community. That takes an investment. And Treasury has always said, nah, it's a lot cheaper just to pay them the dole. And that's why there are 350,000 people in this country right now, as I talk to you, currently dependent upon a welfare dependent. Not talking superannuitants, just welfare dependents. 350,000. Ridiculous.